a Nigeria that will shun tribalism, embrace religious tolerance, and respect the rule of law. Our children certainly deserve a brighter and better tomorrow, not the memories of good old days. I am joining hands with Sir Shemode Badejo in this collective drive towards a greater and better tomorrow. How about you? Thank you.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
If you no talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 and they pay.
Accuses police of killing 8 of its members during a protest in Abuja, but the Nigerian police deny doing that.
Lagos plans big for power generation. The Commissioner for Energy will be in the studio this morning to tell us all about the plans.
And a foundation moves to get more girls in science and technology using boot camps. Glad to have you join us on The Breakfast on PlusTvAfrica this very beautiful Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us. I am Osaugi Ogbon.
And I am Annetta Felix. Thank you very much for staying tuned to us on The Breakfast on PlusTvAfrica. A very beautiful day today in the city of Lagos, but across the country, the top trending stories really don't give us a cause to be happy. Good morning to you, Osaugi.
Good morning.
Our first top-trending story, the headline says 6 dead, others injured as security forces opened fire on Shiites in Abuja. We know about the Shiites and their protests, usually their march that they usually come out once in a while to protest the release of their leader, El Zakzaky. Despite a court order for him to be released, he's still being held. But this time around, they didn't say the protest or march was for the release of their leader. They say it's an annual symbolic trek that they were observing in the city of Abuja when police officers opened fire on them. And the days leading up to this particular annual march, security had been beefed up, around the Federal Capital Territory because of anticipation of violence or disruption or whatever that might occur. So I really don't know where they got this wrong for the police officers to eventually open fire, leading to the loss of 6 lives. I mean, this occurred near Gwarimpa Gates in the capital. They were singing songs, they were marching along the road, and this just happened. So people who spoke with Sahara reporters said, the police just started shooting us. They shot 6 people dead, and they carried some dead bodies away. And trust Nigerians to always string this together to say, during the NSAS protests, allegations of soldiers carrying bodies away during the raid on Igboho's house, allegations as well of law enforcement agencies carrying bodies away. And here now, we have no evidence to prove this, but that's what we have on record. An eyewitness telling Sahara reporters that 6 people were shot dead and the bodies of others were carried away. We really have no idea why that happened and why these raids, in fact, happen, because, the last time I checked the Constitution, we have freedom to assemble, but we see this year in, year out, week in, week out, month in, month out. So let's really see a clearer picture of what happened at Abuja.
We are finished. People were dispersing while the police and soldiers arrived. They started shooting tear gas, then later on they used live ammunition on us, majorly female and children, because most of the male have even left because they have already conducted the prayer for us to disperse. So this is what happens today. They just attack on armed, innocent female and children. They have killed about 8 people now. So many people have run into the bush with so many gunshot injuries.
All right, just a short clip from the events yesterday, or the incidents yesterday in Abuja. I was saying to myself yesterday that I personally don't think I am, mentally or even emotionally ready to discuss, this particular story and, just really discuss how Nigeria breaks, a person down and how Nigeria hurts. Because, that's really how I can interpret this. Nigeria just really hurts. And, it's, more reasons why you're seeing thousands of people jetting out of the country to wherever it is that it takes them. It doesn't matter if they're going to Antarctica, as long as they leave the country, because the country currently really, 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 really hurts. The reports of lives being lost, to the reports of bodies being taken away, to, the fact that, this was not even in any way violent. It wasn't a protest or anyway, it's a walk. And the fact that, I think it was someone who mentioned yesterday that the injustice that has been done to Ibrahim El Zakzaky, under no circumstance in the whole wide world, will anyone look at that and just throw, and ignore. It is the worst type of injustice that has been done to that particular person. And the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people just continue to look away. Yes, there's demands from Amnesty International, SERAP, and the rest, but it doesn't, it has of course not had any effect. And of course, we cannot see these things continue to happen, because this is not the first time that we're seeing this. There's a more gruesome video that I actually saw, and I shared it, with the group, of soldiers yesterday and what they were doing to these same Shiites. And it makes you just start to, it's a good point to, just mention that when insurrections arise, nobody should act shocked or act surprised, and say, oh, where are these people coming from? Because this is not the first time that these Shiites have been killed in broad daylight, multiple times. In fact, it almost is on record that every time that the Shiites have a walk or a protest, there is, loss of lives. It might be 2, 5, 6, 10, but every single time that there is a walk or a protest, there is, and to be honest, and I think everyone should be honest with this, that there has never been any time that has been on record that the Shiites went on a protest and were violent or they destroyed anybody or they caused a harm to anyone. It has always continued to be a repeat of the same thing where the police and the Nigerian army attacks them while they do their protests. There's a video, I think I was still on radio back then, where there were live videos of the army really just shooting live rounds at the Shiites. Blank. I mean, there was no provocation. They were really just walking. I think the video clips are still on YouTube, where Nigerian army soldiers really just got on one knee and started firing into a crowd of Shiites. So it's not the first time. It's happened many times, and that is the Nigeria of today, and that is a Nigeria that the Nigerian army has no respect, no respect for the value of the Nigerian life. These are the people who are meant to protect Nigeria's integrity and Nigeria's territory, and of course stand for a Nigerian, but they are the ones instead that would kill without any fear or worry. And so man, to be honest, I'm just not there, in a place where these things are easy to speak about, because we're speaking about this today. Pretty much the same thing we did months ago, and we will be, talking about it in another couple of weeks or months when it happens again. And I hate to be a part of a space that really just has these conversations and goes home to sleep and continue my life, because it really hurts to see what Nigeria is today. And there's no ignoring these things, because if it doesn't affect you directly, it will affect you indirectly. Somehow, some way, you will be affected by what Nigeria is today in 2021. And I made that statement when the policeman was killed in Ajawa Estate, that Nigeria can happen to you at any time, regardless of what space you are, regardless of who you are. Nigeria can happen to you at any time. There are reports of, unverified for now, but I'm sure it will make the news today, of someone who was killed in the southeast. I don't want to call the name because it's still not verified, but it's the husband of a very popular Nigerian who's also late, who was reportedly also killed by unknown gunmen in southeast yesterday. When those reports are verified, we'll talk about it. But, well, good morning, Nigeria.
6 people dead in Abuja, and when we just go further down into the northern part of the country, Borno State, we hear stories of 20 more people who are mostly fishermen, also victims of Nigeria. What the news is saying is that an Air Force fighter jet fired, into this crowd, this community in Borno State, and they basically killed these 20 people. And like they would say, it's a glitch. We heard stories like this about 2 weeks ago or so, where in Borno State, an Air Force fighter jet also opened fire on a civilian community in Yobe, killing some people. We saw the pictures on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper. Children badly injured, women and men as well. And of course, they denied this at first, or they will keep quiet, but then later they will come up to say, oh, this happened, we would investigate. Take us back to 2017. Same thing happened in Ran. Still, in this same Borno State we're talking about now in 2021. In 2017, an Air Force pilot dropped a bomb on a village in Ran, killing dozens of civilians. The military apologized, promised a thorough investigation, but they never made their findings public. So we never really knew what happened in Borno State 2017. What happened in Yobe a few weeks ago, where at least 12 people were killed and many others were wounded. And just now we're getting news of this event that happened reportedly on Sunday. Just a few days ago, 20 people said to be killed on Sunday in Kwata Daban Masara community in Borno State. How long more would we continue to hear stories about a technical glitch by the people who are supposed to be protecting us, then firing bombs on us? I really can't rationalize how this happens. What sort of a mistake? Is it that they didn't get training? That's why people keep saying things like this has to be a deliberate attack by the army, because we really want to question how people of such caliber, for you to get on a fighter jet, you must have been thoroughly trained. You must know your onion. So how do you get on that plane with all the training necessary, and then things like that happen?
I don't know if to call it a glitch. I don't know if a glitch is the right word to use. And I think these things, maybe happen when there is a mistake with the coordinates that are sent. There's always reconnaissance. There's people who are on ground, I believe. There is meant to be people who point out
so
coordinates.
So who's sending the wrong coordinates? Because it's a mistake to many.
That's what would be the likely explanation for things like this. And also, to be fair, about a month ago or so, or less than a month ago, the United States also had pretty much the same thing, where they had fired from a drone, an unmanned aircraft basically had fired what they thought was an ISIS camp or an ISIS member, and so in their bid to diffuse that threat, killed a man and 7 of his kids who he had driven back from work. They had come to welcome him, and the bomb exploded, or the jet fired, unmanned aircraft fired, and he was dead. They had also initially denied it, and said that it was actually an ISIS threat until investigations on ground by the Washington Post and a few others.
Do you really want to compare that U.S. situation to what happens in Nigeria? Really?
Hold on. They did investigations on ground, and then the U.S. Army then owned up and said, oh, yes, it was a mistake. And, they put out press statements. Of course, they're speaking about compensations for his family, his wife, and, other family members who, didn't get affected. But that's in the United States. In Nigeria, it happened in Iran, like you mentioned, in 2017. It happened 2 weeks ago. It happened again, on Sunday. And that's where the difference is. These things don't happen every 4 market days, in a country that actually knows what it's doing. And so, once again, Nigeria can happen to you at any time. And it's embarrassing, and how? And do we come here every morning and we're talking about 20 people dead, 48 people were killed in Kaduna on Monday or Sunday or Monday? 12 were killed 2 weeks ago in the same, Nigerian Air Force misfiring, and now we're talking about another 20. If you remember, not long ago, there was also a story of a helicopter firing into a boat somewhere in the Niger Delta that also led to the loss of lives. That till date has not been investigated. There's still no explanation as to what happened there. This really is just a very, very clear picture of what the value of the Nigerian life is to the Nigerian people and to the Nigerian government. And that's exactly what it is. Because of the speed with which we move on from these things, and I've accepted that we can wake up in the morning and hear 100 people died, and we just move on like it's nothing. It sounds like, some Akara woman's oil, went bad. That's how easy it is for Nigerians to move away from stories like this, and, and nothing will happen. The same with the Nigerian government itself has continued to, and people would say murder its own citizens and really just move on like nothing happened. There's no investigations, there's no sanctions, there's nothing, no checks and balances to be done to find out what happened and, where it went wrong. You would realize that in the coming days, there would be no proper statement from the Nigerian Air Force to say, this is where we got it wrong, this is what happened, and this is, what we're doing to ensure it never happens again. Nothing. We move on until we sit here again a couple of weeks from now and report a similar story. So, Nigeria just really breaks your heart. And I would say our condolences go to those families who were affected in the Air Force misfire.
Okay, so we have another story moving away from security to politics, right?
Yeah, so this is just a short video clip that we'll be sharing with you, maybe on a lighter note. And this is from Rivers State, where there was, of course, a meeting. The chairman of the NDDC, Godswill Akpabio, was in Rivers State for, I'm not sure exactly what the program was, but while they were there, the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, had a few things to say. So let's play it for you, and we'll be back.
There's no collaboration we have had with the NDC that they have completed one. The Mother and Child Hospital, we are supposed to have collaborated with NDC. We brought our own part of the money. NDC didn't bring it down. Okay, refund us our money that you are holding. It was a war. Thank God they know if they didn't pay what the problem will look like. And they paid back that money. Now, the headquarters, where they are now, Mr. Minister, you are here, you and the MD. You told me in Government House that you partner with the state government, that you are going to bring 2.5 billion, the state government will bring 2.5 billion for the dualization of the papers. As I speak, you have not brought 1 naira. Meanwhile, the road is almost 95% ready. If you don't pay, I will make sure you won't use that road to your headquarters. Because, yes, because I'm not there for a Christmas. Yes. Yes, because, you see, about the fact that you have built this one for police, IG will not send police to support you that day, because I'm going to be the one that will need to block that road. Because it must fulfill what you have promised.
The River State Governor, Houston Wike, has distinguished himself as the vocal governor, almost like our own Donald Trump, in the sense that he would always bear his mind on issues. And regarding the NDDC, we know that he's been calling them out, whatever they do wrong, whatever he feels this is not, just doesn't go by the book. He calls them out for it, and I don't know, people love him for it, don't they?
Yeah, it's funny, actually to see, and maybe it's a good thing that we ended with that one, because I watched it yesterday, and I did have a good laugh. At his, the way he always expresses himself. Like you said, he never holds his tongue on anything. And so it's one of the things he's been known for, and it's always very, very interesting to see. I like the part where he said, it's a good thing that they refunded because, they know what the problem will look like if they didn't. So it's funny, and it's interesting. And it also shows that he knows exactly every little tiny detail of what goes on in the state. He knows about contracts. He knows agreements. He's, on ground, hands-on. He's not leaving some of these responsibilities for commissioners or House of Assembly members or anything. He gets involved with every single detail, security, infrastructure, education, all of it. There's also a clip that we didn't get to play where he was, in a gathering, accusing the GOC in River State there of being involved in oil bunkering. He said it to his face that he knows that he's, involved in criminal activities of oil bunkering and is a security threat to the state, and is maybe doing that so that he can raise enough money to become chief of army staff at some point. He said it to his face. There's also a video clip that emerged about a year ago where he was accusing a traditional ruler in River State there of being one of the troublemakers in the state. It's also always very, very funny, but it shows that really he doesn't hold back his thoughts, his views on anything, and if, regardless of who you are, how high and mighty you are, he will tell you exactly what.
Do you think other politicians should emulate that? Because lots of people would rather be politically correct and want to be more diplomatic, more tactful regarding these things. But Wike would say, no, you're erring here, and I'll call you out for it in public.
Yeah, I think it's something that should be emulated. So what's most important is to be aware first, because a lot of people may not do it because they don't even know.
Yeah.
So what I am seeing here, and the same thing with Governor Yahaya Bello. There's also a clip where he went to see a hospital refurbishment and realized that it was below par, and he called out the contractor who was right there, I think it was a Chinese contractor, and told him that the work is rating is 0. So for me, what's most important is the awareness of what exactly is going on in your state at every single level, in every community. That's what you as governor should be. Yes, you appoint people to handle MDAs here and there, but doesn't mean that you should take your hands off. You should know when there's street lights bad in every single corner. You should know when there's a blocked drainage. You should know when there's security threats. You should know every single team, whoever it is, let your security reports actually come to you and be things that you can verify. So if he's accusing the GOC of being involved in oil bunkering, he has been properly briefed and he knows exactly what he's saying. If he's accusing the traditional ruler of being a tout and being involved in insecurity challenges in that region, he knows what he's saying. He's not just saying these things for humor. And if he's accusing the NDDC of failing to play their own part, when they had agreements on funding for certain projects, he knows exactly what he's saying. And that's, for me, is the most important part. Not many governors would have his humor or have his manner of expressing himself, which a lot of people find interesting and funny. But most importantly, say what you want to say. And most importantly, rather, be aware of what exactly is going on in your state. And that's really what
And I think that his
is.
personality, that charisma, really makes the bitter pill of his criticism easier to swallow, because he says it with a hint of, maybe humor that is not even deliberate. It's just him. It's just who he is. And it makes people laugh. But the point is, he's driving home a message that somebody's failing to deliver on their job.
Absolutely.
And definitely you should listen and take that seriously and sit up.
Yes, absolutely.
So yes, kudos to him. I mean, that's the general view of Nigerians. They say, yes, well done. You are politically aware and you're not afraid to say what you think. So yes, that's where we draw the curtains on Top Trending this morning. Let's take a break and see what's trending across the papers on Off the Press. Good morning again. Let's get into the papers on Off the Press this morning. The Punch newspaper has this as its headline. Federal government releases fresh debtors list. November. 77 oil firms owe 2.66 trillion naira. Firms fail to remit petroleum profit tax, income tax, education tax, VAT, others. We're partnering EFCC, NFRU to recover 2.66 trillion naira from oil firms, says agency. Also, Nexim votes 36 billion naira for SMEs exports business in 36 states. Northern governors under fire over silence as Kaduna death toll hits 51. Also, this one says, petrol landing costs now 278 naira, says Moman. Crude reaches $80. Vaccination. Senate to probe maltreatment of Nigerian travelers in Ghana. Only Lagos, Rivers, and Anambra can survive on IGR, VAT, and that's according to reports. Also on the Punch newspaper, jailed Invictus Obi says it's an insult to compare him to Hush Puppy. Develop Ondo Seaport, decongest Apapa gridlock, Akeredolu tells federal government. Saraki, Bimisola tackle quarrel government over demolition of local government library. Police comb waterways, others to free abducted retired general in Lagos. Shiite clash with soldiers, police in Abuja, allege 8 members killed. Restructuring. Only solution must be done before 2023. Afenifere insists.
And now to the Daily Independent newspapers. Big one there says 77 oil firms owe federal government 2.6 trillion naira as it borrows for budget deficit. Also, Shiites and police disagree on death of 8 IMN members after clash. Reps probe NYSC call on core members to prepare ransom before leaving home. And also, Secondus no longer an issue. PDP insists to meet with Jonathan. IPOB and other separatist agitators to join October 1st Sit at Home. Or rather, IPOB asks other separatist agitators to join October 1st Sit at Home. Oil prices rise above $80 per barrel for the first time in 3 years. Senate moves to repeal the Electricity Power Sector Reform Act. And also, 2023 presidency, don't set nation on fire. Northern youths warn southern and northern governors. Middle Belt Forum blasts northern governors for opposing power rotation. And northern governor's position violates the constitution, says Adegbo Rua. Supreme Court, Okowa mourn Justice Oseji. And of course, here in Lagos, Governor Sanwo-Olu says attackers of security agencies will face justice. Those are the stories on the Daily Independent.
Let's turn to the leadership newspaper. Power shifts. Northern governors divided over Kaduna declaration. Middle Belt youths disown Northern governors, traditional rulers. Resolution portends bleak future. Nigeria collapsing under Northern leadership. That's according to Ohaneze. And the AFC fires back, says they're sick. Also on the leadership, oil production. Nigeria struggling to meet 1.7 million barrels per day OPEC quota. President Muhammadu Buhari approves 159 new radio and TV stations. Amid defection rumor, PDP invites Jonathan to convention. Supreme Court loses second justice in 6 months. Security agents are informants to criminals. That's according to the CG of the NSCDC. Senate reps in supremacy battle over bills conference. 6 killed as Shiites clash with army and police in Abuja. Those are the stories on the leadership newspaper.
And on The Guardian, 7 oil firms owe Nigeria $6.48 billion amid continuous borrowing. Nigeria's debt may hit 40 trillion naira by 2022. And it says also outstanding tax enough to offset budget deficit, says ex-CITN boss. Still on The Guardian, World Heart Day, experts warn on spike in heart disease cases and deaths. And Anambra LP gubernatorial candidates' whereabouts unknown. Still on The Guardian this morning, Ohaneze tasks northern leaders on unity in Nigeria's survival. Afenifere chides northern governors, back southerners on power shift VAT collection. Again, headers kill 9 in Otom's local government. Lead mine collapses on 3. Lead mine, I beg your pardon. Senate directs local multinational oil gas firms to relocate to operational bases. And I think finally here, editors urge governors to emulate Bello on media empowerment. Those are the major stories that we can find on the papers this morning. Good morning to Mr. Ademola Akingbola, publisher of the Podium Media. Thanks for joining us.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Nice to be here again.
Yeah, I think we can start with the Shiites and the security agencies issue in Abuja that has reportedly led to the loss of another 8 lives. I'm not sure if you've seen any clips and feedback from that.
These things don't seem to suppress or shock us any longer these days. I mean, it's going to a stage where we all we do is just resign to fate, and we just count the number of casualties. Okay, because almost every week there's something going on, killing Zamfara, Kaduna, the whole of the northern part of the country is just under siege, and it's just unfortunate. And what I don't understand is why hasn't the governments of these states declared a state of emergency, Kaduna especially? Okay, the same El Rufai, that all of this is happening under his nose, has time to poke nose into what is going on in the south, has time to play politics with people's lives, and all of this is going on, and you haven't thought it fit to declare a state of emergency, get the soldiers onto the street to restore normalcy, to ensure that lives are safe. So for me, I mean, even before the end of this program, we may hear of another attack. So it's like we are just used to it. I mean, it shouldn't be, but we are used to it. And it just shows that truly the federal government, the state government, they've lost control of the security situation in the country. I mean, I don't think we need to look further.
Well, aside the Kaduna issue, I think the story is mostly referring to a protest or a walk yesterday by Shiites in Abuja that eventually, of course, led to loss of lives again when the police and the army attacked these protesters and reportedly fired live rounds at them. There's also reports that they took some of the bodies away. There's also a video clip that was posted by Omoyele Showore that showed some army members beating up the Shiite members. Okay?
Sorry. Then you want to look at the underlying issues. How did we get to a state where the Shiites have become so powerful? Remember, 2 or 3 years ago, there was a bloody clash. Their leader was arrested and jailed, and it's like they are back more powerfully. And if you just look at it, Kaduna State is not big. How come it's so difficult for the government to govern? Kaduna is not a big state, really. It's not as big as Kano. It just shows that the volatility in Kaduna State is a sequel to probably poor governance, or that the fact that the governor has distanced himself from the people. So something needs to be done. Kaduna wasn't like this before. Yet it's always been an hotbed of radicalism and political controversies, but it's never been bad like this. Kaduna, Ibadan, Enugu used to be the regional hotbeds. But Kaduna in recent times seems to have really, things have gone haywire. So for me, I think the federal government should declare a state of emergency in Kaduna State, and let's see how this will work over the next few months.
Okay, so across the papers this morning, what's made headlines is the fact that 77 oil firms currently owe the federal government the sum of 2.6 trillion naira. So when we look at how it's stated on the Punch newspaper, it went on to explain that these states are owing the federal government as much as 2.66 trillion naira because they failed to remit petroleum profit tax, education tax, VAT, and others. What do you say to this? Are we having challenges with how we collect these taxes?
The first question you want to ask is, how did it happen? How did it happen? How did we get to a stage where so much is being owed? Okay, then you want to call into question the efficiency of FIRS, the efficiency of the state internal revenue services also. And it shows that there's a high level of collusion and conspiracy going on between officials of these revenue collection agencies and the state government. It's something that we know. Even in the private sector, in Lagos, if you receive a charge or an invoice from LIRS, you can negotiate it. A portion of it goes to the officials, a small portion goes to the government coffers. So we know these things happen. And my question is, how did we get to a state where so much is being owed? And also, this may support arguments for fiscal federalism. Okay? Let state and local government get more involved. Okay, let them control revenue collection. If you know that this revenue you are collecting is what you will spend, I think people will be more serious, will be more honest and transparent. But because when they collect the money, they remit it into the federal board, they don't seem happy with what comes back to them. So it's like, okay, let's sit on this money. And even for the oil firms too, we need to find out how did we get to this stage. And these are the leakages that will not allow the Nigerian economy to go forward. We're talking about almost 3 trillion naira here. Enough money to finance the budget, enough money to reduce our borrowing. Okay, and you want to ask, how long will this take before this is recovered? And once the list is out, you will see litigations. All sorts of delayed taxes will be deployed by the debtors, and maybe for the next 3 years, we're going to be on this. So, I mean, I live in a place where you cannot even owe accommodation bill for more than a month. Electricity, you can't even owe. The system detects and they just knock you off. But in Nigeria, I'm sure this is not a debt that happened overnight. It has been there for over the years, accumulating and accumulating. And some folks in the government must have been receiving one form of gratification or the other to suppress this. So I'm happy that this has come into the open. The next question is, how do we get this done? How do we tackle it? There will be a lot of controversies. People are going to be querying and they're going to be doubting, they're going to be disowning some of these debts. That's why I say for the next 2 or 3 years, we'll probably be on this. But something needs to be done. For me, we need to decentralize the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It's still part of the problem that the center is too powerful in Nigeria. The center is too powerful, and the constituent units are not happy because look at the vast controversy. You send so much to Abuja and you get so little. Other states that don't even send as much as you send, they get more than you do. So that cannot hold. That's where we need to look at restructuring, and fiscal federalism will ensure that states become more committed to revenue generation because they know the money is coming back to them. They are the ones that will spend the money.
All right. Also on the Daily Independent, there's something about the October 1st celebration. It says IPOB asks other separatist groups or agitators to join October 1st sit at home. Mr. Kimola, what do you think? Do you see any linkage between these separatist groups, or will Nigerians maybe also buy into the idea of the IPOB sit at home to protest?
If you evaluate IPOB activities in the Southeast in the last 1 month, you will realize that the sit at home has been quite effective. I do get in touch with folks there from time to time, and there's so much confusion. It's like they give them 2 or 3 days to go to the market and all that. But IPOB has no right to ask people not to go out. I mean, that's part of the breakdown in security that we're talking People have the right to free movement. IPOB, any regional association has no right to ask people not to go out. So maybe you want to find out, okay, previously, how has this been complied with? And I will say, unfortunately, people do comply. People do comply because what IPOB does is to go ahead and aggressively and violently enforce this order. Okay? They get people arrested, they get people beaten up, they get people dehumanized just to ensure compliance. So the police should do something about this. Don't issue a statement that people should go about their normal businesses and ensure there are enough policemen on the streets to ensure that people are not molested or dehumanized. So for me, it's another sign of the fact that who owns Nigeria? Government is not in control. That's the truth. Government is not in control because if IPOB is truly prescribed, the IPOB should not be issuing orders that will be this effective.
But do you see any sense in the other separatist groups buying into that idea, not forcing people now, but looking at sitting at home as their own form of protesting, and encouraging people to also do same?
Sitting at home has never worked. I said it on this program a couple of weeks ago. It hurt the economy, it hurt the people, because at the end of the day, we do not have the capacity to see it through. Nigeria is a country where we start an agitation and it just tails off with time. And you begin to wonder, what have we gained? I remember 2014, Occupy Nigeria. I was in Nigeria. I was going, after the 4th day, people started bringing music, they started bringing food, and that was the end of the agitation. So sit at home has never worked. And I wouldn't expect the other groups to join because it makes no sense, really. It's like after saying people should stay at home in Lagos and all of Southwest. We are going to bring the economy to its knee, and the people are the ones that will suffer. Right. The suffering is much already. So I don't think they should join. It makes no sense.
So this VAT story really has been trending for the past few weeks, and we know the origins, yeah? But the report by Budget has, done its analysis and came up with a report that says that only Lagos, Rivers, and Anambra states can survive on their internally generated revenue and VAT, and that the rest of the country really would fall behind economically. So the question is, what's Lagos doing differently, and how can these other states, develop prosperity in their country, in their states regarding their finances?
Yeah, this is something that we've always known over the years, that most of the states are not viable. The states are political creations embarked upon to satisfy the desires of politicians. I mean, we know Lagos is viable today because Lagos used to be the commercial center of Nigeria. Okay? I mean, it is the commercial center. It used to combine both until IBB moved the capital to Abuja. So Lagos is very good. There are so many businesses in Lagos, and we are even saying what Lagos is collecting IGR today is even probably 10% of what Lagos should be collecting. Okay, so there are so many businesses in Lagos, and therefore it is so easy for Lagos to have a lot of money coming in. And the same thing with River State. Oil companies, other businesses are there. And we said, look, must we have 36 states? No. As part of restructuring, maybe we need to begin to merge states because the states are just in a mess. Remember, shortly before Buhari came in, most of the states could not pay salaries. And I think if something is not done, we may be going back to that state now. The states are not viable. There's nothing that they can do. They're not viable. Another thing we need to look at is the profile of public expenditure at these states. What they are carrying is insane. I mean, look at most of the states, they spend over 70% of what they earn, they spend it on paying civil servants. They spend it on recurrent expenditure. So they have little or nothing to spend on capital projects. They can't do anything. By the time they pay civil servants, they have little or nothing left. That was the problem that this guy had in Osho State, when he refused to pay civil servants. Say, look, you are not the only people in the state. We need money for development purposes. And eventually it worked against him. So Lagos is very well. There are so many. There's nothing different that Lagos is doing. Lagos is just riding and leveraging on the fact that it is viable. So many people are, too many companies are operating there. So many businesses are operating there, and there's a population.
So what can these other states do, since that merger might not be on the table at the moment?
Yeah. So what the states should do is to want to plug leakages. There are leakages in all the states. Okay, there are leakages in all the states. Plug the leakages, find a way, employ more people, put policies in place to ensure that you capture. The local government should be more involved in revenue collection because they know these people, right? Outside Lagos, they know them very well. They know the business they run. And corruption should also be reduced. We can't say exterminated, but it should be reduced. In these states where we complain that they are not viable, the money that they are making, what percentage goes to government coffers? Maybe 30%. So corruption needs to be checked. They need to put in place measures to plug leakages. Okay, they need to bring everybody into the tax net. A lot of businesses are not registered and they are making money. Okay, because of the fact that we still rely so much on cash transactions in Nigeria, but there are no records. And when businesses are not registered, when they don't have bank accounts, you can't even know that they are making money or not. So we need to work with the CAC to ensure that businesses must be registered before they operate. That way, we will have records, we will be able to track their tax liabilities, and we will be able to get more people paying tax. So those are the things the other states should also do.
Okay.
All right. Some other thing, that has been major discussions in the last few weeks. It's on the 2023 presidency. It says here on the Daily Independent, don't set nation on fire. Northern youths warn Southern and Northern governors. And also the Middle Belt Forum blasts Northern Governors Forum for opposing power rotation. Yeah.
I said last week that we don't have a nation, we don't have a country, we just have loose units coming together, calling themselves states. 2023 is going to be very interesting. What the Northern leaders, the emirs, governors, they are playing a game that's going to burn their fingers and that will burn the country. Okay? Yes, the Constitution does not support power rotation, but morally, that is what we should be doing. We've had 8 years of the North. It is inconceivable that the North will want to have power again in 2023. Some people say, oh, I don't care, merit, let the best. Yes, but we have good people in the South too. Okay, there's no section of the country that has a monopoly of producing good candidates. And in the interest of fairness and equity, if 8 years we are beyond that Northern rule, let the South also have a shot. And that is why we need to go back to the issue of restructuring. There are too many issues, and you look at Northern governors, they've opposed virtually everything. Open grazing, they opposed it. VAT, they opposed it. Power rotation, they opposed it. And you begin to wonder, are we in the same country? No country can make progress as long as there is strife among the leaders. So if the leaders, if the people that we look up to take us to the promised land, if they quarrel openly, if they issue inflammatory statements, then what do you expect the followers to do? So everybody has lost hope, lost confidence in them, and like Jonathan people say, let's go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
But I do hope that the leaders of the two political parties, reason will prevail and something sensible will be done. I do not think that we will continue this way.
Yeah, but I want you to also speak on, one of the, riders to that story, and where it's the Middle Belt Forum saying that they're not in agreement with the Northern Elders Forum and whoever else, is creating those narratives. Why I'm asking that is because a lot of times when the North is talking about its numbers and, its control and, and some of all of that, it seems like they always pull in numbers from the Middle Belt and from, all those other regions and, assume those numbers are included to theirs. And so how important it is for the different segments and sections in the country to be able to identify themselves and say, this is our stance and we're not in any way a part of this plan.
You recall that the Middle Belt has never really seen itself as part of the North. They've over the years fought this battle for recognition, for a distinct identity. So I'm not surprised that they are coming out also. The Middle Belt has become the beautiful bride. Okay, that is what they are trying to position themselves to be. They will never go with the North. Okay, and talking about the game of numbers, the northern governors are just living in self-delusion because your numbers will not be enough at the end of the day. Remember, President Buhari contested 3 or 4 times. Relying basically on northern vote, he didn't get it. So there will always be need for alliance between the North and the South. Reasonable, positive alliance. So I don't think any section of the country should arrogate political relevance to itself. Okay, we all need each other. The North needs the South needs the North, and the Middle Belt, because of its strategic importance, will continue to be the beautiful bride. Okay, it used to be the Southeast, but the Southeast is so fragmented and so and so disorganized now that you don't even know where they belong. So 2023 will see the Middle Belt emerging as a force to reckon with, because over the years they've been able to achieve a distinct identity. And don't forget that the killings in Benue State, all of this will come into play. Okay, these are factors that will determine the direction that the Middle Belt will go in 2023. That's the way I look at it.
All right, so since we're talking about 2023, let's look at something that's on the Daily Independent newspaper, and it says that secondus no longer an issue. PDP insists to meet with Jonathan. I also see that earlier on the Punch newspaper. It says that amid defection rumors that the PDP has invited Jonathan to their convention. Let's take a look at the issue with Jonathan and the PDP, because we know how much of a role he's played in the international community, ever since his tenure as president, and how it seems that there seems to be a clamor for him to come back and run for 2023. Do you see that likelihood happening in the next few months?
For me, it's shameful. It's shameful that PDP, after 8 years, is holding on to Jonathan as one of its viable options, because this is the same man that practically ran the country at Grant. Although today people say, oh, things were better under Jonathan than what they are today, but under Jonathan, they haven't done very well. So for me, PDP would be how do I put it? PDP would not appear to be a serious political party if Jonathan is the one they are touting to be their number one candidate. And I just think that this kite flying will not work. It's not something we should dissipate too much time and energy. I don't even see Jonathan winning the party's ticket. I really don't see him winning the ticket. You realize that he came into government, I want to say by default, following the death of Yar'Adua, and of course, he used the power of incumbency to win the election. I do not think Dr. Jonathan is a good man, gentleman. I don't think he has the political clout to win the president to win the presidency for the PDP. They're making a big mistake. It's not a candidate the PDP should be looking at now. Personally, I don't think so. Yeah.
Go on and share your thoughts on the possibility of him defecting, even. And what how this would hit the PDP or the APC or the Nigerian people.
One, nothing is impossible when it comes to politics in Nigeria. But quite frankly, Dr. Jonathan is not a political asset that any of the parties should Joso to have. I mean, that's my opinion. He's not, I mean, just like Faneka already joined APC, what's going to be the impact? He can't even win an election in front of his house. So there are some political paperweights that you don't even want to waste time on. And unfortunately, Dr. Jonathan, his profile as ex-president is what everybody is looking at. But we need to look at the viability of candidature as a president. It's not going to fly. It won't fly.
Oh,
it won't.
Will it also matter even if it's not being used as a candidate, but simply defecting? And how much damage would that do to the stance that the PDP currently has, and also to his own political future?
Little or no damage. Dr. Jonathan leaving the PDP would except the PDP is not really serious and they are not structured or organized for the 2023 election. Let me tell you, the next election is for the PDP to lose. If they put their house in order, they have everything going for them. It will just be the way it was in 2015. In 2015, Nigerians wanted anybody except Jonathan. They wanted anybody except PDP. And then the way the country is now, Nigerians want any party except APC. So the PDP needs to look beyond Jonathan. The PDP needs to organize itself and begin a massive mobilization campaign. People want a change. People want a change. And the APC, the change the APC has brought is a negative change. So people want a change. And since there are two viable political parties, Nigerians don't mind going back to PDP, but it depends on which candidate. So Jonathan leaving the PDP will not cause any damage. Jonathan joining the APC, I don't see the value it's going to have beyond the hype in the media. Yeah. All right. Politically now, it's not going to have much.
Okay. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, there's a story that says that the Nexim votes 36 billion naira for SMEs export business in 36 states. So basically, the Nigerian Export-Import Bank has gone on to say that it has voted a minimum of 1 billion naira for SMEs in each state of Nigeria. This is good news, definitely, especially those who are in the export business. But let's look at, where we're coming from regarding how these monies are disbursed. There's always that concern, really, isn't it? Yeah. About if the money would finally go to the people it's intended for. That's the businesses that export.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I always like to adopt a realistic approach to issues in Nigeria. This money has been voted on paper. The money is there. But in reality, who can confidently say the money will go to the right places? Just like the way it works in the banks, the CBN comes out to say, oh, we've spent so much money on agri development, we've given farmers. Which farmers are you giving the money to? The same way commercial bank will say, oh, we've advanced credit worth XYZ to the SMEs, and yet the economy is not growing. So where is the money going to? The money is going to the hands of importers. Importers who put so much pressure on our foreign exchange. And that's why the problem is monitoring is a big problem in the public sector in Nigeria. Nobody monitors anything. Nobody. So Nexim on paper is doing well. The amount voted sounds good, it's a tidy sum. But let them go a step further to ensure that this money gets to the right hands. Again, how do we register and monitor SMEs in Nigeria? We don't keep records. Okay? I do not know if the CBN SME department has accurate records of viable SMEs in this country. A lot of businesses are registered on paper simply because people want to take advantage of funds like this, not because they really want to do anything. So we need to be very tight with our monitoring. We need to be very tight with the registration of SMEs. Viability is key. People must file tax returns. If you register a business here, you have to file your tax returns. If you don't make any money, you still have to file a return. In Nigeria, this doesn't happen. So good on paper. My concern is how do we ensure that this money is used for the purpose for which it is intended?
All right. Let's move over. Well, still on the Daily Independent. Apparently, there's a lot of stories that we haven't touched yet. There's one here that I would call a little hilarious, and it says reps probe NYSC's call on core members to prepare ransom before leaving home. This made headlines sometime last week, where, of course, part of the NYC booklet, there was, some places that were stated that, you may want to prepare your own ransom. And if you are kidnapped, build a relationship with your kidnappers, ask them their hobbies, and be friends. So, quickly speak on
Was this statement not denied by the NYSC?
Well, that's why the Senate. That's why the Senate is investigating, the matter.
If the NYSC has already denied, what are you investigating? That means you are jobless. There are better things to investigate. Okay? If it was something that was issued in the mainstream media, and that's why we have to be very careful with the social media. And I do not expect the reps to take everything they read in the social media as the gospel truth. There's no way the NYSC will issue such a statement. It's not possible. It's not, and the NYSC has denied it.
It's not the NYSC necessarily that put out a statement like that. I think it's people that were taking screenshots from the booklet, the NYSC booklet that was given to them.
But the NYSC has the responsibility to either confirm or deny.
It is, Mr. Kimball, it's actually confirmed that it is in the NYSC handbook.
It's in the NYSC handbook?
Yes. It was added to the NYSC handbook.
That's so unfortunate, and whoever is responsible should be sanctioned. So maybe the House of Reps is right after all to investigate it. Maybe that caution should have been couched in a better way, really, but not to say prepare to pay ransom. You could have said something like, "Please stay safe, avoid going to places alone," and stuff like that, and it calls to question the level of supervision that public officers do have. Someone in the public relations department should have seen that booklet before it was printed, line by line editing and all that. So it's a shame, actually, if it was established that it's contained in the booklet. And whoever is found to be responsible should actually be punished. Yeah. But the statement, as bad as it is the truth. That's the unfortunate thing. It's the truth. In Nigeria,
that's where I was going to. So isn't this a good time to now have conversations on NYC postings to certain areas in the country, and maybe also a suspension of the scheme for a year until we can figure out security?
Absolutely. I have, even proud to now, I've always advocated the scrapping of the scheme or reduction to just 3 months. The NYSC, as it was originally structured and intended, has lost its relevance. It's just a waste of time. Keep people there for 1 year, they come back, nothing has been gained, really. So let us ensure that students served in their state of origin, they should start in the states where they have gone to school. That's not what is the adventure about. There's no fun again.
Mr. Akimala, lots of people would disagree with you, people like myself, to be honest, who I would definitely say that in my career journey, my posting to Adamawa State was really the nudge that threw me into television journalism. I had been in radio all along. So
how many years ago?
This was in 2017, in the height of the Boko Haram insurgency in Adamawa State. I mean, bombs were going off in Adamawa State, and people would call me to say, "Are you safe?" No, that's what I'm saying. That yes, times seem to have changed, right? So we can advocate for people who like me who benefited from the scheme, right? It's definitely is not the same for everybody. We could maybe say, let's suspend this till we have our security on check, right? But to say that the scheme should be totally scrapped or for people to be posted to their states, I don't really know much about that, really.
Let me tell you, if you ask parents in Nigeria today, do you want your son or daughter to go for NYSC in the north? 95% will tell you no. They will tell you at the end of the day, what is the benefit? NYSC in those days was an avenue for you to know the country, to learn, to get exposed. These days, is it the same experience? No, it's not. It's not. In those days, you will be gainfully employed as an NYSC member. Everybody was busy. These days, they don't do anything. They get posted to companies, they are rejected right from day one. So for the 12 months, these poor guys, they roam the street doing nothing. So we need to have a conversation around the continued relevance of NYSC in Nigeria. It's not enough to have it simply because you also have it. Let's reduce it to 3 months, 3 or to 6 months of intensive vocational skills acquisition. The skills that these guys will need to survive in life. What's the point in going for NYC for 12 months? You come back, you can't get a job. So that period that you've gone, can we convert it to a period of knowledge acquisition for them? Equip them with the skills, life skills, skills that they will use to survive, skills that will not make them to be liabilities onto their families. That is my view. You don't run the program simply because it's nice to do. No, beyond the security challenge that we are going through in Nigeria, the NYSC scheme is not having any value. That is my argument, and I'm ready to advance this argument anyway. Most parents don't even want their kids to go. Do you know the amount of corruption that takes place in NYSC today? As people manipulate the posting, everybody wants to stay in Lagos, Abuja. So the purpose has been defeated. Most people, they school in those states, they end up serving in those states. They school in Lagos, they end up serving in Lagos. So the idea as espoused by the founding fathers has been defeated. That's my point.
Okay.
And we spend so much money on it. What is Nigeria gaining from NYSC? What are the students gaining from NYSC? Maybe we should have a live debate and sample the opinion of parents and the students, because they are the ones that are directly involved here. Okay, so we need to incorporate their views. You went because you probably your case was just maybe an isolated case of, oh, you went, you had a nice time. A lot of people have very torrid experience of NYSC. These are people that will stay at home for 3-4 months waiting for batch B, batch C, or whatever nonsense batch. 3 months wasted at home. There are another 12 months. Then they come and there's no job. Almost 18 months wasted in the life of a human being. It can only happen in Nigeria. We're wasting people's time too much. So for me, shortening to a 3-month intensive program, what of all the military training that they are going through in camp, is kidnapping not rising every day. Let's train them survival skills in a competitive environment. Give them intensive 3-month, 6-month training program and give them certificates that employers of labor will recognize all over the world. That is the direction I think we should go in, really, with the NYSC.
I agree. All right, let's still talk insecurity. The NSCDC CG here says security agents are informants to criminals. Might be a little indicting here, but, share your thoughts quickly.
Are you surprised? Osaro, are you surprised? It has always been with us. It's always been with us. As far back as the days of Anini, remember, in Edo State, a top police officer, I can't remember his name now, was the informant. It's always been like that. It's always been like that. And because corruption has taken over the entire fabric of the Nigerian nation, you cannot even rule it out any longer. In those days, we used to have isolated cases, a police officer supplying armed robbers with ammunition. But today, it's big business. Because the average policeman claims to be hungry, claims to be underpaid, okay? No insurance, no welfare. The police barracks are not well kept. The children are not happy. So tell me why it won't take the grace of God for an average security officer not to collude with criminals. They would do it willingly. So I'm not surprised, because it's a chain reaction in Nigeria. You look at the way things are, right from the way the students go to school, they pay lecturers, okay, to pass exams, they pay to get posted to choice states, they get to NYSC camp, they pay, they stay in Lagos, and they are serving in Edo State on paper, but he or she is in Lagos. When he finishes school, he pays to get employment. In Abuja, in some federal agencies, people pay as much as 1.5 million. I don't know if you've heard. So all around us, we are edged by corruption. So the policeman is also a member of Nigerian society. He is not an exception. The security forces, they are not insulated from corruption. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. This has been happening over the years, but maybe more and more it's coming to the open. The security forces have always been conniving and colluding with criminals in Nigeria. It's always been happening, long before now.
And we've had other experts on the show who says this really just shows a lack of patriotism, and that these guys just get into this force because, you know, they were unemployed. I was speaking to a policeman just yesterday who was just telling me the history of how he got into the police, that he was just at home and his uncle called him to say, do you want to work in the police force? This man told me, he said, okay, well, how'd that happen? We were just having a conversation and you know, these new recruits passed by. And he said, these guys driving or walking past and doing their match. Now, did you see the police call for any recruitment? That no. Now, that's how it happened for him. His uncle simply called him to say, do you want to work in the police force? He never did any exam, never did anything. They just posted him to Bauchi or one of those states. He did his training for 6 or 12 months and he was redeployed to Lagos. So really, we see things like this where it's not because you're passionate about serving Nigeria. It's not because you want to eradicate crime or, you know, just serve. It's simply because it's an employment scheme. And why do we keep having this? Corruption in recruitment in law enforcement agencies.
Exactly. In addition to that, when we talk about patriotism is a relative term. It's a relative term. What amounts of patriotism to you may not amount of patriotism to somebody else. Patriotism only happens where government has fulfilled its own side. Agreed, no country is ever able to satisfy people 100%. But to a reasonable extent, any government must take care of citizens before you talk about patriotism. Otherwise, you are just going to be mouthing it. Okay? Nigeria is a country where people don't even understand the meaning and the spirit behind the words of the national anthem and the national pledge. In other countries, it's not like that. Okay? Because people don't care. So you go into the police force, it's an employment platform. You've been home for years. You are not going because you have passion for the country. So you are not going to put your life on the line for anybody. At the drop of the hat, you want to make money out of every situation. And that's the unfortunate thing. So if it was to be in a country where, when you join the police force, you know that you are made for life. Your family will never suffer. In America, when you join the army, 6 months, you become a citizen. Something that takes other people 4 or 5 years. Okay? So they make everything so easy for you, but the screening is rigorous. The background checks is super. The character checks is on top. So that way you reduce the number of undesirable elements that find their way into the armed forces. It's not happening in Nigeria. It's not happening. That's why you find a lot of police officers, even the way they dress, you know, this one used to be an agbero. He used to be a tout. It's just so unfortunate. So yes, the recruitment procedure needs to be looked into so that we make sure that we only get people who are passionate about serving the country. And two, the welfare needs to be looked into. We can't shout enough of the need for us to take care of. Look at the other day, Aminu Masari was saying, bandits have outnumbered what do you call it? Security personnel. That is not true. What he meant to say is that bandits are more passionate about their own business than the security people. Okay? Yeah, that's the truth. Because if there's a gunshot now, there's a likelihood that the policemen will be the first to disappear. They'll be the first to run away. So it's all about passion, it's all about commitment, it's all about patriotism, which is not happening in Nigeria at all levels. At all levels.
Okay. Now let's move on, talk a little bit about the economy. You know, there's reports of oil prices hitting $80 a barrel. It says it's the first time it's happened since the current administration's gone to power. Is this something that we should celebrate? And does this also spell better figures for our economy and of course for our budget?
Yeah, it's something worth celebrating as long as we do not get carried away, because it's not Uhuru yet. Oil price at $80. OPEC has said oil will remain a major source of energy since 2045. So yes, we can, but that doesn't mean that we should keep relying on it. Okay, even if you get to $120, look at the budget shortfall. Look at the deficit that we've got. Look at the borrowing profile. Look at the amount of debt that we have to pay. So good news is gone up, but we should continue to be moderate. We should continue to ensure that there's tight rein on public spending. And that's an area that we haven't really harped on. The public spending is too huge. The American presidential system that we're copying is too expensive for us. We can't cope. We cannot maintain it. Okay? So yes, I'm happy oil price is going up. At the same time, our spending must go down. There are two ways to make profit in life when you're doing business. It's either you make more money or you reduce your expenses. So as a country, we can make more money and also reduce our expenses. Oil price going to $80 is not a license for us to continue to spend recklessly. We do spend recklessly in Nigeria. If we manage the little we have, we shouldn't be in this mess. Even if oil price is $50, my brother, if we manage it very well, we will not be in this mess. Yeah. So it's good for the price to go up, but more importantly, we need to put a lid on our public spending. We're wasting too much money in Nigeria. Too much.
On the lower left corner of the Daily Independent newspaper, there's a story here that says Senate moves to repeal Electricity Power Reform Sector Act. So basically, they're saying that they're taking steps to basically improve the electric power supply in Nigeria. And this bill to repeal this 2005 Electricity Reform Act scaled second reading at yesterday's plenary. And they say the bill tries to do so many things. Number one, to consolidate all legislations about the power sector into one power electricity statute, to also include renewable energy into it. So the question I really want to ask you is, would you say what we're lacking is laws in Nigeria regarding power, education, this and that? Or it's about the implementation?
Both. At the level of preparing the laws, we place personal interest over national interest. If you look at the Power Act, the unbundling of NEPA is a huge national disgrace. The way it was done, it's shameful. So in Nigeria, people make laws to satisfy their own personal interest. Okay? All over the world, yes, companies do lobby to ensure favorable laws, but not to the point that a whole nation is brought down to its knees because of the interest of a few people. Look at what happened with Courtney, with Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Government officials, they go into some silly agreements that you wonder how was this able, how did this happen? So it's good that the bill has passed second reading, and I'm praying that it will go the old org to become a law, to be assented by the president. We need to review the entire law that guides the operation of the power sector. It's a whole lot of mess deliberately put in place to satisfy the desires of those who bought NEPA, the desires of those who control the business of power generation in Nigeria. So yes, formulation of law, there are too many loopholes. The implementation also has always been a problem with us. All over the world, a friend was telling me, said, look, we also like to drive through red lights. We do not like to stop at traffic light junctions. But when you think of the implication of being caught, then you won't do it. So it is the consequences of people's actions that we need to look at in Nigeria. People get away with too much breach of the law and nothing happens simply because you know someone who knows someone who knows someone. But the system needs to put in place whereby when you breach the law, you get punished, you get sanctioned, and it will serve as a deterrent to other people. So at two levels, while the law is being formulated, we do look at the Petroleum Industry Act that we're talking about. Okay? The president has sent it back for amendment, and you wonder, it took us over 19 years to put this together, and this is the best that we can come up with. So at the level of formulating the laws, we do not do due diligence deliberately so. We deliberately overlook a lot of things that will benefit the country. Rather, we make the laws, we make it so loose that there'll be so many escape routes, there'll be so many loopholes for operators to exploit. Look at even the telecom sector, the same thing. Why has NCC become so ineffective? Because the laws are so loose that MTN can afford to go to court to challenge NCC. Okay? So the power sector, we need a new set of laws that will put power in the hands of the people. Okay? You pay for electricity, you don't get service, you should get some refund, you should get some form of, how do you call it, consolidation. But it's not happening. It is the seller's market, so that needs to change, quite frankly. So yes, I hope the rest will go the whole or get to the Senate, and we should be able to have a new law that will clearly spell out the deliverables on the part of the operators, that will clearly spell out exactly what we should be expecting from them, and that will clearly define sanctions. Okay, operators should face sanctions when they breach the terms of their contracts. Thank you.
All right. Ademola Akingbola, thank you so much for
you
your time, as
Thank
always,
you.
on Wednesday mornings. And we wish you a very beautiful day ahead. Looking forward to
And
speaking
you
with you
too.
again.
And you too. And please don't forget, Aneto, don't forget to take care of the matter. Thank you.
We'll think about it. Thank you.
Right, bye. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. And that's what it was, obviously an extended off-the-press session. Really interesting conversation with Ademola Akingbola there. But just before we move into our first major conversation for today, let's share with you what happened on this day in history. We've spoken a lot this morning about insecurity and killings and murder and, headers and Boko Haram and whatnot. But on this day, of course, in 2013 was yet another of those incidents where 42 kids were killed in a college in Yobe State. It's a place called Gujba, the College of Agriculture in Gujba, Yobe State. The report says that at 1 a.m. that night, Boko Haram terrorists stormed the male dormitory of the college and started firing their weapons. Says about 42 people were killed. About 1,000 of them had to flee into the forest and into the bush, to save their lives. They had driven there in Hilux vehicles or some, two vans. The terrorists had come there with two vans and opened fire at the mainly Muslim students in that college. It was, of course, one of the saddest days in Nigeria's history. I remember that we had woken up that morning to hear these stories, and it felt like it was a dream, because this, just was not something that was easy to imagine. Also remembering that these were just kids that were killed on that day. And of course, the stories started to eventually come out, to show how it happened and how people were in their sleep when, they started to hear gunshots and, weapons being fired. 42 people eventually lost their lives on that day in 2013.
Sad day for Nigeria's history. And it's so unfortunate that, that time, like you mentioned, we didn't see these kind of incidents, too often. But now it's become too frequent that it's almost, we're basically losing track of just how many of these attacks are happening on any given day.
I don't think we'll ever be able to keep track, to be honest. I think there's too many of them that are unreported, too many kidnappings that are also unreported. There is unconfirmed reports that Dr. Chike Akunyili was killed yesterday. We're going to be following up, and of course we'll bring you further details on that one once it is confirmed. But like I said, there's too many of these reports, even here in Lagos, in Benin, everywhere. There's so many that are unreported. I don't think that any agency would be able to properly keep track of the number of lives that have been lost in the last couple of years.
So stay with us. Our next major conversation is about power generation in Lagos, and we'll be speaking to the Commissioner for Energy and Mineral Resources in Lagos State.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there's regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. From the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
The way your baby's presenting, we have to rush you in. And my partner at the time was like, "You're going to cut her? Are you going to cut her? Is it going to leave a scar?" And I said, "Am I a belly dancer? What is the problem here?"
No, I'm vulnerable about the future of the children, the future of mine and the future of the generation of my children.
I want to have nude pictures taken. Of you? Yes, but without showing my private parts. I want to put it in my front room. And they said, "You can't do that. People will be embarrassed when they came into your house." I said, "Well, it's my body and it's my front room."
All the things that we do, what is the purpose of it?
I just realized that I was more trusting before I was 6.
So many women, they just feel like I have to cook for my husband, I have to breastfeed my children, I have to pick them from school.
Because society expects
them. Then you go
to.
home and you cry and you stop your career, you can't do anything, then you blame everybody. You took that choice.
businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
If you no talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 when they pay.
for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. The Lagos state government plans to break away from the national grid. Now, it's part of a new electricity policy to make Lagos a 21st century state. Let's talk more about power generation and distribution in Lagos with the Commissioner for Energy and Mineral Resources in Lagos State, Mr. Olalere Odushote. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right, so not many people know much about the plans of the Lagos state government to generate their own power. Please tell us more about that. And before you start, just exactly where are we regarding power in Lagos?
All right, thank you. So Lagos state government does not plan to generate power per se. What Lagos State wants is for power generation in Lagos to be available and sufficient for all Lagosians. So it's not so much power generation anyway, it's really just universal access to electricity. That's what we want. Now, to make Lagos State a 21st century, as espoused by the administration of Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, we need to have 24-hour electricity in Lagos. And it needs to be sufficient for the needs of industry as well as residents.
So like I said, where are we right now? And what's the plan to get us to where Lagos wants us to go to?
Well, the first stage in trying to plan a solution is to first of all identify and dimension what that solution is. So to do that, we've had consultation sessions, we've had interactions with the public sector, we've had interactions with the private sector, we've had interactions with the populace of Lagos. We've also met with the industry as well, the practitioners today, the DISCOs, the Transmission Company of Nigeria, to try and understand what the bottlenecks are and what's stopping power from getting to Lagosians. And what we find out that it's not so much the fact that there's no generation, but that the distribution, the metering, and the transmission aspects are where the issues are. Today, Nigeria generates under 4 gigawatts of electricity, of which Lagos State gets about 900 megawatts. That's not enough for Lagosians, because when you consider that we get 900 megawatts from the grid, and a study from 2014 shows that we have 15 gigawatts of auto generation capacity, then Lagos is getting all the power it's using mostly from off-grid. So what we want to do is encourage the we want to encourage the development of that sector to ensure that it's then more defined, and it's more focused, and it's better planned, such that Lagosians can then get the benefits of the cheaper electricity that we think we can encourage by working with the sector.
Okay, talk a little bit more on, because you just mentioned 900 megawatts. Is 900 megawatts going to be enough to give Lagosians 24-hour power if we fix the distribution and the metering and those basic infrastructure deficits? Or would you say that Lagos maybe needs to get up to 2,000 megawatts if it truly wants to have 24/7 power?
Well, first question, is 900 megawatts enough? Certainly not. And 900 megawatts is what we get today, even with the issues with the sector. And I can ask you that question. You live in Lagos, and so do you. I live in Lagos as well. I certainly don't have all the power that I want from the grid. In my house, I have an additional power plant of my own, as I imagine that you do, such that when there's an interruption in the supply, I have to go and switch on my own IPP. And a lot of Nigerians do that as well. And what we're trying to do is encourage the growth of the sector by saying, now, central planning is what we've had so far. So we all get power from the grid, and we all expect that the power from the grid should be sufficient. We know that it's not. And rather than have a solution, a secondary solution that then works for Lagos, everybody goes on their individual way to procure their own power generation. We don't think that's efficient. We certainly don't enjoy any economies of scale from that, and we're looking to replan the Lagos electricity market to say, here's a Lagos electricity market. We've already gone ahead and carried out, we've already developed an integrated resource plan working with the USAID that has identified how we can improve that market, separate from the rest of the Nigerian market, but still connected to the rest of the Nigerian market. So we're focusing on Lagos and trying to solve the Lagos problems ourselves.
So in a paper published a few months ago, you said that the plan is for Lagos State to go ahead and ensure transmission distribution functions should be owned, operated by the private sector. Please tell us what the plan is for Lagos State government to work with the private sector to ensure that, these power plans are fulfilled.
I think when you think about the capacity of the government to do things, and you compare that to the capacity of the private sector to do things as well, you find out that most of the capacity that exists is actually in the private sector and not in the public sector. I'll give you an example. Lagos State's GDP is about $153 billion. Lagos State government's budget is about $3 billion. So if you look at the capacity of the private sector to mobilize and the capacity of the government to mobilize, there's no comparison. It's infinitely more, it's greater on the side of the private sector. What we just need to do is to encourage them to mobilize these funds, right, to serve the people of Lagos in a more coordinated way rather than where we all do it individually. 26 million citizens in Lagos cannot be trying to do their own power. It certainly would not be cost effective.
Okay, and then, still focusing on generation. I've seen people who have made mention of converting waste to power and some of all of that. Are these some of the things that Lagos State government is looking into? And will the private sector be able to partner with the Lagos State government to see if those things are possible?
Oh, certainly. So one of the things that we're trying to do with the policy is to encourage the private sector. In fact, it's a primary aim of the policy is to encourage the private sector to work with the government to try and solve the power problems in Lagos. So we're looking at everything from renewables. I mean, when you fly over Lagos and you look at the amount of rooftop space we have available, and you think, how about if I cover all of this with solar? Would it solve the problem? I mean, given the crashing prices of solar over the past few years, we're starting to think it's actually a viable alternative. And we're saying if we can encourage the development of that and perhaps even make a statement that says that we will encourage the improvement of the mix of renewables into the generation sector in Lagos State. I mean, if you look at the winds anyway, the winds are tilting towards renewables. It's starting to be unfashionable to continue to burn fossil fuel. For one, it's bad for the environment, and if you look at the tenuous ecological nature of Lagos, you start to think we should be focused on that too. And the government certainly is looking at that.
So, regarding this topic about what Lagos is trying to do, it is laudable. It's something that maybe other states should emulate, to boost the economic activity of their state and, by extension, their IGR and all of that. But some stakeholders say that this is a plan that would likely be scuttled by the federal government. Do you have such concerns? I do not. The federal government and the state government have been working together to try and improve the lot of Nigerians. And certainly the federal government would not be keen to do anything that's inimical to the development or the progress of the state. So, sorry, is this because of the party lines or?
Not so much along party lines. Let me take you back and look at where we're coming from. The Constitution of Nigeria is clear that distribution of electricity is in the purview of the state. It is not mentioned anywhere in the exclusive list. However, when the Power Sector Reform Act came into being, the states were not in a position to pass laws or to do anything about electricity in their state, given the way the power sector had evolved. At that time, we had one monolithic structure, which was then divided into 11 distribution companies. It wasn't divided along state lines. Fortunately for Lagos, we have 2 distribution companies, all our own. And Lagos State, as you know, is better prepared to manage the affairs of electricity than many other states, especially as they don't have dedicated distribution providers for themselves. The Constitution is clear on that. The distribution, the regulation of distribution is the purview of the state governments. And we intend to fully take advantage of that. The federal government recognizes that fact. They've been very cooperative in the past. They've made the laws when they thought we could not do it ourselves. And when we start to talk to them about making it, we fully expect that they will support us.
All right. Is there a time frame with which the Lagos State government has and the current governor of Lagos State has with which, these things can be achieved? And also, where would you say the biggest challenge might lie in making these things happen?
So the governor of Lagos State has directed that we go ahead with this. He's very keen on it. He's been very focused on making Lagos a 21st century, and he understands that electricity is one of the building blocks, if you will. I mean, energy is extremely important. If you have no energy, you can't do anything, whether it's electrical energy or whether it's even physical energy. We understand that. I mean, the lights have to come on for you to be able to see and do anything. We want a 24-hour economy, and everybody understands that for you to do that, the street lights have to be on. By the end of next month, we expect that all of the street lights in the major streets of Lagos will have been retrofit and will all be on.
So by next month, all the street lights in Lagos should be working. That's one. What else should we be expecting?
We would have passed a policy that will clarify the vision of Lagos when it comes to electricity. We will be far ahead in the process of drafting a law that will enable us to be able to take off, to create a Lagos electricity market and be able to manage it to a favorable outcome for all of Lagosians. Okay. And by extension, Nigeria, because we think, and if you look at it, we think Lagos State has been taking steps in the electricity sector from the beginning. It was the Lagos State government that enabled the Enron barges to be able to contribute 290 megawatts to the sector. It was Lagos State that went ahead and commissioned 5 IPPs to take away the state facilities from the grid and enable more power to be available on the grid for the rest of Lagos. It was the Lagos State government has certainly done many firsts. Lagos State has introduced a number of transformers into communities where they don't have them. We're currently in the process of taking some low-income communities out and turning them into centers of excellence, beacons, if you will, where we're going to ensure that there's near 24-hour power there by beefing up the infrastructure in the system.
What areas are we talking about?
So we signed an MOU with Ikeja Disco to take out some areas of Alimosho, right? Fully meter those areas, fix the downstream distribution infrastructure there and ensure that there's near constant power supply in those areas. What we expect is that we'll be able to do that with EcoDisco in the near future as well. Before the end of this year, we expect to have signed a similar agreement with EcoDisco to take out some low-income areas and fully meter those areas and ensure that we show that we can have 24-hour power in Lagos.
Is there a funding challenge with some of all of this? Because it might look, like it's properly planned, but it also is a huge task to get the whole of Lagos properly.
So that's why we're starting with bite-sized pieces. We'll take out a small area, fix it, and then demonstrate that it can happen. If we take a low-income area and we ensure that they're able to get electricity and pay for it, it would be easier for you to then expand that pilot to the rest of Lagos, and that's what we see ourselves doing.
Okay, so you're saying funding is not a challenge?
Well, if you consider that we have, and I'll use this example, it's actually very simple, and I think you can flow with me. In the past, let's look, and I said a study, right, a study showed that we had about 15 gigawatts of self-generation capacity in Lagos. If you compare that to 900 megawatts from the grid, then it tells you that somebody's paying for that capacity that exists. And let me say something that might ruffle a few feathers here. If we've imported 15 gigawatts of auto generation capacity into the country, now, if you have a generator, you will probably tell me in your house that you paid cash for it. You didn't buy it on a long lease. If you then imagine that these 15 gigawatts were paid for in cash, and then you compare us trying to do a central power plant and then asking for all sorts of federal guarantees because the market structure is not able to sustain it, then you will understand what I'm talking about. The capacity to pay for electricity already exists in the sector. People are paying for it. It's more expensive than the grid. So how much more the grid that's cheaper? People will pay for it. So funding would not be a problem, in my opinion.
Okay, funding knocked out. No other challenge so far?
Oh no, certainly there will be challenges. It's when you talk to customers, a lot of people, and we believe that that's changing. When you speak to people and they talk about the generators that they've bought in their houses, they don't consider that cost. They consider it a sunk cost. When you then talk about paying for electricity from the grid, they start to look at that and say, oh, this is starting to look expensive. It's actually a lot cheaper. And what we intend to do down the road is to demonstrate how much cheaper the grid power is than what you self-generate. We'll start to educate people a bit more and highlight it for them to realize. Because the truth is, when you buy these generators, you also have to think about replacing them after so many years. A lot of times when you don't replace them, your cost of maintenance start to go up. And you don't see those because what you then look at is, oh, grid power should be cheap. Well, it won't be available for very long if it's cheaper than it should be, because at some point nobody will be able to subsidize it anymore.
When you say people will pay for it, who exactly? And what's the setup with that?
So people are already paying for electricity today, let's be honest. So when I say people will pay for it, they'll pay for something that's cheaper and that's available. And that's what we intend to provide.
So you're saying that when this new Lagos State electricity policy comes on, Nigerians will pay lesser for electricity than what we already pay now?
On the average, that would be yes. Now, grid power may be slightly more expensive because what we expect is that it's going to be cost reflective. But if you compare that to the generators that you're running and the better past my neighbors that you see running, it's going to be a lot cheaper.
Okay. Also share, with regards to infrastructure deficit, we've been able to pull this off, because I know that the EKDC and the Ikeja Electric have also struggled somehow, some way with infrastructure. There's also been a backlog with regards to metering. I've also spoken with other distribution companies who have also complained that there's a lot of people who are tapping power here and there that aren't necessarily even paying for this power. They're not on the grid in any way, but they're receiving electricity. So how much of a challenge has that also been with Lagos?
It's a significant challenge, and one that the discos have expressed to us. And what we've said is that we'll work with them to ensure that we curb all of those acts. Now, I'll give an example. If there are 10 people in an area, right, and 5 of them are metered, those 5 that are metered will get electricity and will pay for what they consumed. The 5 that aren't metered will get estimated bills. Now, those estimated bills may not be equitably shared, and there may also be another 3 people that are using electricity that are not known. Those 3 people's bills will still be shared amongst the known customers of EcoDisco or Ikeja Disco, depending on where you are, and that then leads to charges of unfairness to the disco. The discos are doing their honest bit, but the people don't see that because of the activities in the sector. When everybody is fully metered, it will then be clear if there's additional power being lost, that there are some people who are connected and are not metered. It will be easier to focus on trying to find those people. And Lagos State will be working very hard with the discos. We'll be working very closely with the discos to identify where those gaps and leakages are and then try and close them.
So with this new system, you're assuring Nigerians that there will be no power collapse, there will be no power failure or nothing like that, 24 hours electricity all the way?
Well, I'm not assuring Nigerians, I'm assuring Lagosians that we will be working very hard to ensure that the grid in Lagos stays stable and that the Lagos market is viable and fully supplied. Okay, so by next month, all street lights should be powered. So what timeline should we expect this, Light Up Lagos project? Well, for the Light Up Lagos, and I'm glad you brought that up, we expect to have the policy in place by next month. Mr. Governor is quite keen to have this going. We expect to have a law in place by the first quarter of next year, and we expect to start implementing that law by the end of next year, working, of course, with the federal agencies as well as the state distribution companies. Okay, and is there is there hope, that if you don't meet up by the time the current Lagos State government is leaving office, there would be some continuity with this arrangement? We fully expect that there will be continuity, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. I'm sitting in my house. I want to go home, switch on the light and have it come on. I want to go to my place of business, switch on the light and have it come on. And we think that Lagos has always been a progressive state. Lagos will continue to be a progressive state. We believe in continuity of ideas. Lagos master plan that was developed is the one we're still following. We're currently renewing it for another 30 years. And once we have the renewed master plan, we expect that succeeding administrations will look at it and only improve it. So Lagos State, if you know, from 1999 has been on a continuously upward drive, and we have been consistent in our investment in infrastructure. So finally, where do you see Lagos being in the next few years if everything happens as you plan, regarding where Lagos will be in terms of the economic viability, success of local businesses, SMEs, and all of that? So the vision of Lagos State is to be Africa's model megacity. To be Africa's model megacity, you need the infrastructure to be appropriate for a model megacity. We've also, a central agenda of the Babajide Olusola Sanwo administration is the themes agenda, which M stands for making Lagos a 21st century. So it's consistent with the vision of being Africa's model megacity. We expect the problems of water to be sorted. We expect the problems of infrastructure, power, to be sorted. We expect the problems of interconnectivity, i.e. traffic and transportation, to be sorted. We expect security and governance to be top-notch. So our vision for Lagos is one of a 21st century mega city. I mean, well, I keep using the word mega city. Lagos State has actually grown to be a hyper city now because we now have more than 20 million people here. So the idea is to then make Lagos a welcoming abode for people who are willing to be productive and contribute to the economy.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Well, if you can, in 10 seconds, assure Lagosians that it's not going to have, I've seen a lot of people complain about the Lagos Light Rail project and the promises that were made with that, but, it doesn't seem to have gone very far. Can there be some assurance that this will go as planned?
Oh, certainly. Let me also say this. Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu is a committed governor. He has assured that the light rail project, as you have mentioned, the Lagos metro system, I dare say, the blue line and the red line will be operational by the end of next year. Now, there's some things you can't lie about because they have a how do you call it? They have a sell-by date. So they have an expiry date. If I say that I'm going to do something by tomorrow, if it's not happening by tomorrow, then you've seen that I've lied. Mr. Sanwo-Olu has said that the rail programs, the first phase of the blue line and the red line will be operational by December 2022. And I've seen the work that's going on in the background. It will happen. Okay. We will light up Lagos streets by the end of next month. We will pass the policy by the end of next month. We will have a law in place on electricity by the first quarter of next year. We'll start implementing that by the end of next year. So all of these things have dates that are firm and that we're committed to working with the federal government. All right.
Mr. Olalere Odushote, you have spoken fantastically well about the Lagos state and our projects regarding electricity. Let's just wait and see just how great everything turns out, because really that's the plan and that's the hope. So we just spoke to the Commissioner for Energy and Mineral Resources here about power generation in Lagos State. We hope you enjoyed every bit of the conversation and all through and when we talked about extensively the newspapers and the headlines making stories in the country, as well as our top trending stories here for you. If you missed out on any part of the conversation, do follow us on all our social media platforms. It's at PlusTvAfrica.
And of course, same thing with our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and the PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Osaugi Ogbon.
And I am Aneta Felix. Bye-bye.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. From the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
Thanks for joining us on Plus News Brief. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa. The police have denied killing members of a banned Shiite Muslim group who had gathered in Abuja on Tuesday. They say they arrested 57 of them and recovered petrol bombs and bags of stones. Members of the proscribed Islamic movement in Nigeria, IMN, said earlier that security forces had shot dead 8 Shiites, and these were taking part in a procession to mark the religious ritual of Rabin. The Abuja police said they had intervened to stop the IMN members as they had been causing unnecessary hardship to motorists along the Abuja-Kubwa expressway.
We are finished. People were dispersing while the police and soldiers arrived. They started shooting tear gas, then later on they used live ammunition on us, majorly female and children, because most of the male have even left because they have already conducted the prayer for us to disperse. So this is what happens today. They just attack on armed innocent female and children. They have killed about 8 people now. So many people have run into the bush with so many gunshot injuries.
The IMN leader Ibrahim El-Zakzaki was released from detention after being acquitted in July of 8 criminal charges, including aiding and abetting homicide, unlawful assembly, and disruption of public peace. Zakzaki and his wife had been in detention since 2015 when they were arrested after a clash in which the army killed an estimated 350 people at an IMN compound and a nearby mosque and burial ground in the northern state of Kaduna. Armed gunmen, numbering about 60, have allegedly stormed Rafi local government area of Niger State and invaded the palace of the Emir of Kagara. However, news reveals that the Emir, Ahmed Tahiru II, has been away for almost 2 weeks. The armed gunmen stormed the palace on 20 motorcycles, shooting sporadically and causing panicked residents to scamper for safety. They were said to have come through the Tahiru Primary School towards Madaka Road, leading to the bush, where they abducted the students of Kagara some months ago. And reactions have continued to trail the northern governor's rejection of the position taken by their southern counterparts on the presidency zoning. Some are demanding a shift of the presidency to the south-south in 2023.
The Northern State Governors Forum have opposed the call by its southern counterpart that presidency should move to the south in 2023. They said the statement by their southern counterpart contradicts the provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. But Okponabon Kutaria, who was guest on the breakfast on Plus TV Africa, says the statement is misconstrued by some interest.
So when the southern governor said it must come to, maybe the choice of word, it must come to the south, what they actually meant was going by the rotation principle that we have in this country, the next president should come from the south. That's basically what they mean. But this view, the use of the word south, is being exploited by certain mischievous characters who want to use that as an excuse to ensure the emergence of a northern president.
Affirming the popular notion that election is a game of numbers, Nkutaria says there is no region that is more important than the other.
When the southern governors say it must get to the south, they are not saying to hell with you, northerners. Not at all. I don't think that is what they meant by saying to hell, whether you like it or not. Because even if you talk of numerical strength, whether spuriously or factually, the North has the numerical strength. So there is no way the South would have just done away with the North on the issue of the presidency. It is not possible.
A former presidential candidate, Ahmed Buhari, says the notion of where the next president should emerge should be based on negotiation amongst various interests in different regions beyond the politics of rotation.
I would have expected that these southern governors sit down with northern governors and negotiate this thing out. Okay. But by the time you come out to make blanket statements like must come to the south, then you now see some people in the north who naturally would have been very happy to find the southern and come up in 2023, say, you know what, this doesn't have to be a must. Nobody has come to talk to me. Even in those individual states in the south, nobody comes out to say, I must be governor. You go around the local governments, you go around the stakeholders, you negotiate, you talk to them, you win their sympathy, you win their understanding, you bring superior argument to the table. You don't just say must.
According to Okponabo Nkutaria, the Governors Forum should look beyond the grammatical expression of their southern counterpart for the purpose of cohesion. In all of this, good governance is the most important in any democratic dispensation. Messi Ebokbo for Plus TV Africa.
Still in the news, the Pan-Yoruba Socio-Political Organization, Afenifere, has insisted that the country must be restructured before the next general election. The group said this in a communique at the end of the meeting held at the house of its acting leader, Ayo Adebanjo, in Ijebu-Igbo, Ogun State. The communique was made available to journalists in Ibadan by the National Publicity Secretary of Afenifere, Jare Ajayi. The group said restructuring was a solution to the many problems confronting the country, adding that this must be done to tackle the problems of insecurity and many others. Afenifere enjoins the president to key into restructuring that they have been advocating, as it is similar to the reform that the president wants to see at the United Nations. And the Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, and the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Godswill Akpabio, exchanged verbal attacks on party politics and performance in an event attended by President Muhammadu Buhari. The event was the official inauguration of the Muhammadu Buhari Nigeria Police Protection Unit, comprising 68 flats and other facilities built in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, by the Niger Delta Development Commission. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo represented Buhari at the event, which was attended by Governor Wike. Akpabio, the Minister of Police Affairs, Mohammed Meigari Dingyadi, the Inspector General of Police, Adkali Usman, the Chairman Senate Committee, Senator Peter Nwoboshi, and his counterpart in the House of Representatives, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, among others, were present. Akpabio stirred the hornet's nest when he cited the crisis in the All Progressive Congress as the reason why he would not join any other party bigwigs to appeal to Wike to defect to the APC. But Wike, who spoke immediately after Akpabio, wondered why the minister turned the inauguration into a political campaign. The governor, juxtaposing the crisis in the People's Democratic Party and the APC, said he would not leave where there is malaria to join a place where there is cancer.
The governor of Rivers State, because you are not yet in APC, I will not call you a performing governor. But the moment you come, I will call you a performing governor. So I thank you for being personally present here, and also with your deputy. I know that even the praises we are heaping on you today show clearly that you are in the wrong direction. So it's time for you to come to where you are.
I thought we came fully to commission this project. I didn't know that former Governor Akpabio will turn it a political rally. But let the records be straight. I prefer to say where there is malaria
why there is cancer. Former governor, malaria is treatable. Cancer at 4th stage, you are likely to die.
And the Senate on Tuesday urged the federal government to provide 300 billion naira as emergency intervention funds to rehabilitate deplorable roads in Niger State. The resolution of the upper chamber followed a motion on the dilapidated state of roads across Niger State. Also for the blocking of the roads by protesting trailer and tanker drivers in the last 4 days. The motion was moved by the Deputy Chief Whip of the Senate, Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, who represents Niger North. Senator Mohammed Sani Musa accused the Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola, of bias in his attitude to roads construction and repairs in Niger State. And still in the news, the House of Representatives has mandated the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing to, with immediate effect, mop up all necessary resources. The ministry is to commence emergency repairs on all roads and bridges affected by the torrential rains across the country. This decision followed a motion of urgent public importance on the floor of the House by Honorable Ibrahim Isiaka. He noted the recent torrential rainfall experienced across the country in the last 3 months. Honorable Ishaka says this has caused severe damage to roads and bridges in different parts of the country and as well left behind tales of wars, despondency, social and economic challenges to Nigerians.
Motorists and commuters are enduring untold hardship, and the security of lives and property of Nigerians have been greatly threatened considerably. With the advent of these and all these challenges facing the country, which we call a force majeure, the House therefore resolved that 1. Mandates the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing with immediately mop up all necessary resources to commence emergency repairs on all the worst affected roads and bridges across the nation.
Okay, no, we already put the question. All right. So the bill is referred to the Committee on Privatization.
And the newly elected leadership of the National Association of Resident Doctors and the Nigerian Medical Association have met with the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, on Tuesday. The meeting, which was held behind closed doors, was to introduce the new executives of the NARD to the minister and to talk about issues prolonging the ongoing industrial action by the resident doctors. Confirming the meeting, the national president, NARD, Dare Ishaya, also said that some of the issues have been agreed upon. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says the permanent voter cards, PVCs, of new registrants in Anambra State will be ready for collection on or shortly after October 7th. INEC's National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee, Festus Okoye, announced this in a statement. He said the decision was made at a meeting of the Commission on the preparations for the conduct of the Anambra State governorship elections scheduled for November 6th. Okoye said the display of the preliminary register arising from the continuous voter registration had been done and it was being cleaned up. And given the nature of injuries sustained from around 9 p.m. at the Lekki toll gate on the 9th of October 2020, it has been gathered that live military-grade ammunition was fired at some point by yet-to-be-identified persons. That's a summary of the evidence of DA Willie Harry, an expert witness hired by the Lagos State government to investigate the shooting incident at the toll gate. The witness testified via Zoom on Tuesday at the proceedings at the Lagos panel investigating the incident. Still in the news, the Federal High Court sitting in Jalingo, the Taraba state capital, has asked Gambo Mubarak to vacate his office with immediate effect. He is a member representing Bali and Gasol Federal Constituency of Taraba State. This follows a suit by the applicant, Garba Garba, asking the courts to interpret how someone who did not participate in a primary election would be declared winner. The court also set aside the certificate of return issued Gambo Mubarak, asking INEC to reinstate the petitioner, Garba Garba.
A pre-election matter had been between two APC candidates. The petitioner, Garba Garba, is asking the Federal High Court in Taraba State to return him as the winner of the 2019 election for Bali Gasso Federal Constituency at the House of Representatives. Gambo Mubarak was the fifth respondent and defendant who has been occupying the office since 2019. The Supreme Court in its ruling declared him as the winner. The court also ordered INEC to issue him a certificate of return. Not satisfied by the judgment of the Supreme Court, the petitioner approached the Federal High Court once again, ruled that the defendant Gambo Mubarak should vacate office. He was also to refund all the money he had acquired while occupying the position. The court also ruled that INEC should reinstate Garba Garba with immediate effect.
For a person to be declared a winner of an election, he must have participated in all stages of the election. That is the provision of Section 285, sub 13, and subsequent provision that contained in the Electoral Act. So we now approach the court via orders of certiorari, mandamus, and prohibition. We now included INEC, House of Assembly, National House of Assembly, the clerk, and the person that was wrongfully issued with a certificate of return. So the court now reasoned with us. They've cancelled his certificate of return. They have ordered our client to be reinstated as a member of the National Assembly.
However, counsel to the defendant, Gambo Mubarak, is insisting that he will not decide if his client will approach a court of appeal or stick to his fate. Counsel to INEC stressed that judicial review process should not be used in nullifying election.
So the argument we presented before this court was that judicial review process is not a process that can be used in nullifying election. It is not a process that can be used to attend to any matter that has to do with election, whether pre-election, whether post-election, or anything having to do with election. The court overruled us, and now that the court has overruled us, we will intimate our client, and sincerely speaking, depending upon the instructions we receive from our client, we have taken our note. If the client gives us the instruction, we are definitely going to the court of appeal. Thank
you. Hello?
Okay, I have listened to the judgment. The judgment has been read. I will not be in a position to comment on the judgment because I have not received a certified true copy of the judgment of the court. But the summary of what I can tell you is that the Federal High Court sat and assumed jurisdiction over this matter and set aside the certificate of return issued to Gambo Mubarak by the Independent National Electoral Commission on the basis that the certificate was not properly issued to him. That is all.
Are you satisfied with the judgment?
No, a lawyer is an advocate. My satisfaction is irrelevant. It is the responsibility of the parties who are concerned with the matter, the parties that the judgment has been given against them, to express whether they are dissatisfied or they are satisfied. So I have no role to play in this one.
It now behoves on the defendant to either accept his fate or proceed to the appeal court to appeal the judgment of the Federal High Court.
And now to stories in other parts of Africa. The Prime Minister of Mali, Choguel Maïga, has been met by cheering crowds on his return to Bamako, days after declaring France was abandoning its former colony during a speech at the United Nations General Assembly. Relations between Mali and France have soared since Paris said in June it would reshape its 5,000-strong counter-terrorism mission in the region. and Mali's military junta began talks to bring Russian mercenaries into the country. France's Armed Forces Minister earlier defended her country's counterterrorism role in Mali and accused the junta of hypocrisy, bad faith, and wanting to delay a transition to democracy. An independent commission says more than 88 workers, including some employed by the World Health Organization, have been involved in sexual abuse and exploitation during an Ebola crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The probe was prompted by an investigation last year by the Thomson Reuters Foundation and the New Humanitarian, in which more than 50 women accused 8 workers from the WHO and other charities of demanding sex in exchange for jobs between 2018 and 2020. In its long-awaited report, the Commission found that at least 21 of 83 suspected perpetrators were employed by the WHO and that the abuses, which include 9 allegations of rape, were committed by both national and international staff. Many of the male perpetrators refused to use a condom, and 29 of the women became pregnant, and some were forced to later abort by their abusers. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who has pledged zero tolerance on sexual abuse and is said to be seeking a second term, said the report made a harrowing read and apologized to the victims. Moving outside Africa now, state media KCNA says the projectile North Korea fired off its east coast on Tuesday was a newly developed hypersonic missile. South Korea's military said the North fired the missile towards the sea off its east coast, as Pyongyang called on the United States and South Korea to scrap their double standards on weapons programs to restart diplomatic talks. KCNA said the development of the weapon system increases North Korea's defense capabilities, describing the hypersonic missile as a strategic weapon. And a Maryland judge has sentenced the gunman who killed 5 people in the Capitol Gazette newsroom in Annapolis in 2018 to 5 life prison sentences without the possibility of parole. In July, a jury found Gerald Ramos criminally responsible for the massacre, one of the deadliest attacks on a U.S. media outlet. The prosecutor's office said in addition to the 5 life terms, Judge Michael Wachs sentenced the gunman to 1 life sentence plus 345 years. Ramos pleaded guilty in October 2019 to 23 felony counts, including 5 counts of first-degree murder, but argued that he was not criminally responsible due to a mental disorder. And in business news now, the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative says the indebtedness of 77 oil and gas companies to the federal government is now 2.66 trillion naira. NATI's Executive Secretary Orji Ogbonnaya Orji, while speaking on the status of the EITI implementation in Nigeria, said the 77 firms carried out their operations across the country. NATI said it would publish fresh list of indebted oil firms that would give anti-corruption agencies, including the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the go-ahead after, or rather to go after the defaulting agencies. Ogbonnaya Orji explained that the 2.66 trillion naira debt arose from failure to remit petroleum profit tax, company income tax, education tax, value-added tax, withholding tax, royalties, and concession on rentals. And to entertainment news now, actor Will Smith has revealed a book tour will accompany the release of his upcoming debut memoir, Will, kicking off in his hometown of Philadelphia on November 8th. The 5-city tour will continue to hit major U.S. cities across the United States and beyond, including Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, and London. No word on whether more cities will be added. The memoir, the Penguin Press published book, is set for a November 9th release date. Inside, it will share the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's star's journey from his childhood to his hip-hop career, to his acting legacy and everything in between. And now to sports news, boxing star Manny Pacquiao, who is planning to run for president in the 2022 Philippine elections, says he's retiring from boxing to focus on the biggest fight of his political career. Pacquiao, a Philippine senator who has been dividing his time between politics and fighting, made the announcement in a 14-minute video posted on his official Facebook page. Known for his fast footwork and blistering speed of punches, Pacquiao was widely regarded as one of the top offensive fighters in the sport's history. Growing up in the south of Philippines, Pacquiao's family was dirt poor, prompting him to do odd jobs to survive. And that's the news brief. For more, please follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa. Thanks for watching.
Hi there. Dayade Fuye is my name. I am the first child of my parents, late Pa and Mrs. Jones Adenola Adefuye from Odogogo, Ogun State. Yes, I was born at Island Maternity, but my early childhood was in Shomolu, where indiscipline and thuggery were forbidden. I remember we would move from one compound to the other with my peers, ate together, played together, and share common experiences. Then, much emphasis was placed on cultural values and respect for adults. That was when family names were valued and cherished. We were always reminded, Roti Omeniti Iwonshe, meaning, remember the son of whom you are.